A major landmark from the historic resort town of Monte was torn down today.
Demolition underway now in Benton County at the site of Monte. That resort town was flooded to make way for Beaver Lake.
You may know of Rogers, Arkansas, or Beaver Lake, but hidden between them lies a bountiful nugget of history in the once thriving resort town of Monte. Trust me, there's nothing more peaceful than traveling through the Ozark Mountains and soaking in the natural wonders that it has to offer. The birds, the trees, the clean air. These aren't the only gems hidden beneath the vast canopy within these mountains. And some wonders even have the ability to freeze time and transport you to a different era. The town of Monte was established by a man named Coin Harvey at the end of one century and the beginning of another. I had the pleasure of speaking with Angie Albright, the director of the Shiloh Museum of Ozark History, and Serena Barnett, the director of the Rogers Historical Museum, about the fascinating town, its origins, and what it means for our history and for the future generations who visit and learn about it.
When people understand where they come from, they feel more connected to the world, they feel more connected to each other.
Monte was a vacation resort that was established in 1901 with the opening of Hotel Monte. William Hope Harvey, or Coin Harvey as he was mostly well known, he came to Northwest Arkansas in the late 1890s and fell in love with this area and purchased a 320-acre property at Silver Springs, which is about 5 miles south of Rogers. And he had this dream of creating this resort at this location. And he loved this area so much because of its natural beauty and that it was kind of an undiscovered, undeveloped as far as an urban area. It still had that very country feel.
This man was quirky, Coin Harvey, and he was interesting, and he had a lot of chutzpah. He had big dreams, and he was willing to work towards them. I think people are always attracted to that, and he was doing really different things, especially in terms of building and architecture.
He started by building one hotel. He had a train station that was at Monte in order to bring people on the rail line. He made it very easy to get to his resort. And his dream was originally to create 5 hotels. And one of those hotels was Oklahoma Road. That was the 3rd hotel that Coin Harvey built. It opened in 1910.
Oklahoma Row was actually a hotel. It sounds like a street name, right? And there was Missouri Row. But they were these long log structure hotels. They were really fancy, but they looked kind of folksy from the outside. And then at the end of this long hotel, there was this 3-story concrete tower that's sort of castle looking almost.
That was kind of the middle of the heyday for the resort. Thousands of people would come and visit there every year, and they would spend months in the summer vacationing at Monte. And it really is what put Northwest Arkansas on the map was this Monte resort.
But it was actually a pretty short-lived dream, and it financially broke him.
In the early 1920s, America came to a halt, and the Great Depression began and spared no town in its path.
Coin Harvey invested every penny that he had. He actually established the Bank of Monte, which was to help fund his resort as well. And it didn't last. But he wanted to preserve ideas from our civilization for the future because he had the thought that the civilization as we knew it was going to collapse.
Eventually, Harvey's health declined, and he passed away in 1936. For the next decade, the town followed him, and the last of the Monte's properties and water rights were sold off and became nothing more than a memory, a place just simply hidden in time.
There was a seminary there for men and women and schools and scout camps. I think it was Oklahoma Row that had a store, like an antique store in it. So the property was sold, and so it was many different things before it actually was moved and torn down. And then when the state and the powers that be decided to dam the White River and create Beaver Lake, that really put the end to all of it.
After the lake took over the site in the 1960s, because Beaver Dam was built in 1962, and by the late 1960s, the waters had receded over most of the Monte ruins. And the tower just so happened to have been up high enough that the lake waters didn't cover it. And so it was one of the few things that was visible on the lakeshore of the remains of Monte. And so it became kind of a local pilgrimage destination to see the ruins of Monte.
I think it's this feeling like there's a ghost town. Like there are enough remnants. Like if that tower wasn't there, or if you couldn't see the bridges or the amphitheater when the water's low, I don't know if anybody would ever think about it. But because there were those structures there, it's just that physical, visual reminder that that there was this town there, and it creates a little bit of mystery, so it draws people and it's interesting, right? In this sense that, there are myths about maybe there's treasure buried in the amphitheater, and most experts say that, that wasn't possible, but it's a touchstone to another place.
If you take a look at Missouri Row in Monte now, you'll find a concrete fireplace with bits of foundation, a few staircases, plumbing, and a retaining wall. As you move east towards the Monte boat launch, you'll come across remnants of limestone structures. These all include foundations of wooden staircases in front of Hotel Monte, components of stone bridges that used to cross the lagoon, and some small retaining walls. Sadly, the amphitheater and the retaining wall for the pyramid are currently underwater. But sometimes during the summer, when the water levels drop, you can still catch a glimpse of them.
Crews began the demolition process on the 3-story tower this morning.
I like preserving things, but it's really dangerous. That tower is really dangerous. It's covered in graffiti.
The building itself has also gotten to a unsafe, dilapidated state, and so is starting to fall on its own. So in order to preserve it, we're taking it down.
The Rogers Historical Museum and Shiloh Museum have requested a couple of pieces of architectural features if they were able to survive the demolition.
We already do have at the Rogers Historical Museum an exhibit on Monte, and so we have several artifacts that are in the collections that are on display in the permanent gallery already. And as far as preserving a piece of the Oklahoma Road Tower, we've been working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to acquire a piece of the fallen tower.
We're working on plans. We've got funding for signage that will go up. We'd like to see a walking trail going through the area, reminding folks of what was here. What we can leave from the structure, we will, if there's anything big enough that we can leave so people can see it.
Even though the Oklahoma Road Tower is no longer there, this site will be preserved, and we will ensure that the history of it is not forgotten.
Honestly, now, one of the things that I find fascinating is other people's fascination with it, because it was actually pretty short-lived. But it's really representative of this time and place in the Ozarks, and we see this all over Arkansas. Actually, it's a beautiful state, and the Ozarks in southern Missouri. People are kind of, I say in quote marks, discovering the Ozarks. It's pretty, the people are nice, and there are all these natural resources. And so as they are discovering this, they're coming to visit, they're coming to settle, and it is one of the phases in the remarkable growth in population too that we see.
The history of Monte is important to this area. It's a unique history. This history of Monte and Quain Harvey, it really helped put Northwest Arkansas on the map nationally. Quain Harvey himself was an entrepreneur, but he was also a politician. He actually ran for president in 1932. He ran against FDR under the Liberty Party, and he actually came in 5th, surprisingly. So there's so many layers of the history within the Monte story itself that is important to remember and helps tell the history of Northwest Arkansas as a whole as well.
What would have become of this town had it survived all those years ago? What ruins and wonders are drowned in the depths of time? Each building tells a story, and just because it's being demolished doesn't mean we can't take a walk through the past and remember the rich yet brief spark of history that Monte left for us. Thank you so much for watching this short documentary on the resort town of Monte. If you're interested in more, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have a lot more content coming in the days. And if you haven't seen it yet, be sure to check out my feature-length documentary about the Majestic Hotel in Hot Springs. It's called Forever Majestic, and it involves small-town corruption, a mysterious fire, and crooked dealers. So if you haven't seen it yet, links are in the description, and we'll see you next time.